Let's get that sure also. ይበቃል
ቡና
ታመጭልኝ አለብኝ አይደል
የማለው ሲስ ያህና ባልተው
ምን
ቡና ናንተ ያዘስከኝ
ቁረጭ ካልበቃው exit አርጋት exit first እሱ ነው ስክሪንሸር እና ዛራ ሻራክ ለማድረግ ሲጫፋ ይሄ አሁን ማይዛረጋት ነው ነው ፓርቲሲፓንት ሊስታል ሮክችን በዚህ ማርካት እና ይሄ በቃ የትኛው ሞክሩት በዛ ሞክረው አሁን እነሱ ሲያወሩ በዛ ነው በዚህ ኮን Slide.
መምጣት ነበረበት ብዬ ነው። ላይ ሻር ብዬዋለሁ እኮ እዚህ ውስጥ ነው የምናገኘው። ቴዎድሮስ መምጣት አለበት። ይሄ ነው ይሄ ነው አልገባም ማለት ነው። አንዴ በዛል ሌላ ነው የሚለው እሱ ላይ
እስከዛው ያልተሸራረፈ በሱ
አይገባም። የሆነ ሪስትሪክሽን ነገር አለ እሱ ውስጥ
oyagalamuleka neyabwe ejja kugwayo. Is he this one? This man in my face knows him. Come and see that person. Must be this person. Now I've quoted, I think, some papers of this person. Giving Sregi. Maybe that is just someone else.
ገብቶ ነበር።
Kasan speaking. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so all right. We are so glad, privileged having very distinguished professors, scientists on board for Tewodros Seyoum Ph.D. defense, public defense today. So before we kick off the public defense, I would like to highlight, how science would really, ongoing at Institute of Public Health, University of Gondar, and that helps you to, Tewodros has, is really very competent and a global standard that may help for your decision on the dissertation. So these are the presentation outline I would like to share. You can see this is the road. So the road has a destination. So the destination, everyone, when you start, traveling from home to somewhere, there is in mind, the destination is in mind. So in public health, the destination is, to inquiry of truth. So we are here, or the Public Health or College of Medicine and Health Science at University of Gondar is working to, for inquiry for truth. This is, finally to wish to have a quest of wisdom. And so for this, we need to begin with the end in mind. We, borrow this quotation from a known writers, psychologists, begin with the end in mind is very helpful for us, for a PhD learning study. Once the enrollment, they have to know, where will be their end, where will be the contribution, where there will be the success. So for this, we are using a 360-degree learning. This is our philosophy. The philosophy of 360-degree learning is, always in every interaction, there is always learning. We believe in that. So we do learn, from senior scientists, professors. We learn from our peers. We learn from the juniors. We learn from the community as well. We learn from the environment. We learn from the organization environment as well. So there is a pragmatism, skepticism, naturalism, and all the philosophical thinking is blended and working and exercising at Institute of Public Health, University of Gondar. So that is, help us, to have a quest of wisdom. So for this, we have this model as well. In the process, every PhD student enrolled at Institute of Public Health, University of Gondar, there is a level of hierarchy of maturation. So this hierarchy of maturation is divided into phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The first phase 1 is divided by 2 years, year 1 and year 2. The first one is a period of entry and concentration. For every PhD student, there is a preparation before entry. There is a standard recruitment criteria. Once they enroll, so we let them to mature, enter and mature, and concentration. So the concentration mainly rely on, come with very novel, ethically sound, and we'll have, a contribution at the for science, for health, or for clinical research. For that, there is an entry and concentration with different type of, seminars and courseworks. In year 2, so this will be a period of maturation in theory and in methods. So in this time, many of our PhD students, reach to this maturation, developing a protocol, a proposal, and defending publicly for a sign, in the presence of scientists and scholars in the field. And they are planning to, develop, register a protocol, develop analysis plan, data management plan, and tool validation, standardization, and so on. So these all are maturation in theory and in methods. So in the second phase, year 3 and year 4, this is application. So the application is they went to the field and collect data, experiment, observe, and all the methodological, in theory and the previous in concentration will be applied, during methodological application. In the fourth period, fourth year, this is innovation, because every research or our PhD students are striving for innovation. So a new input, a new information, a new health intervention, a new knowledge in the health. So, and evaluation, synthesis, interpretation, and communication. Communication is divided into, one is the public defense today. This is high-level scientific argument debate. And the other is publishing, in a peer-reviewed journals in a global Q1, Q2 standards, and communicating, presenting in scientific and in lay audience as well. This is a communication maturation we do expect before they publicly defend. So the final deliverable of the milestone of the PhD journey is public defense. So for this success, we have a PhD weeks. So this PhD week, initially we have 4 PhD weeks, a 5-day PhD week, 4 times in a year. Now we are moving to 6 PhD week to advance more frequent scientific discussion, and the number of PhD candidates are also increasing. For this, within this 2 months interval, always there is a scientific argument. This scientific argument is open for everyone. So that it is very applicable, to learn from everybody, from senior, from junior, from peers, and from the community, and so on. So the culture we have, and we are striving to build up and sustain, is originality. We do give a value for originality. So, and we are striving to every PhD student, every science should be based on originality and independence. This is one of the strategy of a PhD student, to be an independent in research and independency for free speech. A PhD student can criticize his supervisors or seniors with mutual respect and considering the scientific reasoning and argument. And there is also a free of thought and free of inquiry. This is all, considering, the tradition, the value of respectiveness of the Ethiopian value. And scientific criticism for improvement is also our value. And so we have this PhD program and supervision. Most of the time, the PhD program has research work, coursework, and teaching activity, journal club attendance, participation, participation in another research environment, and residence is very mandatory. So the lead supervisors are professors, mainly as a PI, a lead, and associate professors with PhD also considered as a lead supervisor. Co-supervisors can be professors with or without PhD, associate professor with PhD, PhD with assistant professor, senior physicians, visiting and adjunct professors, joint supervision, as we did, professors at Sweden. And there is a postdoctoral research assistance as well. So now I would like to, give an overview of the defense procedure we are exercising today. So I would like to, I'm going to introduce the board of examination, external, internal, and supervisory team. And I will introduce you the PhD student by his or her supervisory team. And the other is, so the PhD student the candidate will present his dissertation for 30 minutes, covering, the research question based on the empirical evidence and the gap and the approach and the key finding and interpretation and its implication and conclusion. So, considering these important steps, so you'll be presenting us for 30 minutes, and there will be a questioning and answering. That is a debate. This debate will be given for a maximum of 1 hour for both external and internal examiners. And then finally, once we address the comment, the discussion with external and internal examiners, so we'll give 5 minutes for audience, to forward, any debate, any questions. And so you can use, the time together, or the external examiner can finish and then followed by the internal examiner, or you can, discuss, together. So there is no any limit, to discuss. For this is, a scientific debate. So we'll give, for you to choose. And then finally, the deliberation. So the deliberation, we are now using, a Zoom platform. So we'll create a room for board examination. So this will help us to discuss about the thesis result, and then completing scoring forms. In deliberations, this activity will be performed. Only the board of exam and the chairperson, Kasaun, will be available. The other audience will be excused to leave the room, virtually and in person as well. So the defense, then the defense result announcement will be the last procedure. So we'll go back to, we'll invite audience virtually and in person to the room, to the virtual room and to the physical room as well. And then we will invite a board of examination to reflect about the dissertation priorly given for external and followed by internal examiner. And then we will give for either external or internal examiner, and will announce the PhD dissertation result. And then we will invite the candidate to reflect the journey, the process, there is up and downs there. So that's the beauty of the journey will be reflected by the candidate. And then we'll invite those supervisory team to reflect their feelings. So these are the procedures, and we are using this standard. Now I would like to introduce our opponents. Thank you so much, Professor Ellingson. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be an external examiner for Tewodros Seyoum Ph.D. dissertation. And yeah, it's very difficult to to summarize your immense experience in the field of research, education, and teaching and leadership. But I would like to summarize in short. Sorry for this. You can complement, while you start discussion. So Professor Ellingson is a professor of women's and children's health at Uppsala, and a professor of nursing at Mid-Sweden University, and education and qualification. So she had a PhD and completed at Karolinska Institute, Stockholm. And she has a lot of immense, huge experience in the field of women's and children's health, and a number of, more than 200 research articles, and teaching and leadership are also immense. And this is a very opportunity for all of us here to learn from your scientific debate. Thank you so much, Professor Ellingson, again. Now, I moved to Dr. Ababao Gabayeworku, a colleague, a friend, and he's a senior health system research scientist and a director and at associate professor of public health and reproductive health at University of University of Gondar, working in on geographic access and institutional delivery. He has a PhD in public health at Addis Ababa University. He did his master's at University of Gondar and BSc in Dilla University. And he had a lot of leadership from the district to the department head, and he was a director at Institute of Public Health. And he was, largely a head of regional Amhara regional state health bureau head. And now he's moving to Addis to the scientist level position on the health system research. He has also, immense experience in the field of maternal, newborn, and child health and in public health domains, including chronic infectious diseases, and has more than 100 published articles, book chapters in scientific journals. Thank you so much, Dr. Ababao Gabayo, for accepting our invitation to be an internal opponent for Tewodros. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Helena to introduce the PhD candidate. Can you hear me, Professor Helena?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, Professor Kasam.
Back to you.
Thank you for this very nice presentation of your program. I think, may I ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking? Thank you. So I will introduce today's important person.
We can't hear you, Professor.
We are hearing. It may be in your side. We are hearing.
You are. So
can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kasam. So is there a problem?
Yeah, any participant, I think. Professor Khalid, can you hear us? Would you please speak out to check whether our conversation is working or not?
Yes, I can hear Helena. Do you hear me?
Okay.
Okay,
let me change my computer.
Yes, we will wait.
Okay. Wait us for a minute, please.
I can hear you, Helena. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can also hear you.
Yeah. But then I unmute now.
Can you hear us? Would you please say something?
Yes,
right.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, maybe my computer was not functioning, from your side. So yeah, first let me introduce, the supervisory team before I do invite you to introduce the candidates. So Tewodros Seyoum Ph.D. PhD supervisory team was Professor Kailik Christensen, Professor Helena, and Dr. Makweo Alamayo from University of Gondar. Thank you so much for your commitment, for your support, to bring Tewodros to these levels. Now I do invite Professor Helena to invite the candidate. Back to you.
Thank you very much. And now I hope you can hear me. So I will introduce today's very important person, our PhD student and PhD candidate, Tewodros Seyoum. So I will also share my screen and let you look at Tewodros instead of looking at me while I am presenting this to you. So Tewodros Seyoum, I'm very proud to introduce Tewodros today. Tewodros is a registered chief expert midwife working as an assistant professor at University of Gondar and the School of Midwifery since 2008 and to date. Tewodros received his bachelor in 2008 and he also received his master's degree in 2013 in midwifery from University of Gondar. Tewodros has further been recognized as Midwife Hero of 2020 by St. Paul's Hospital Millennium for his contribution on maternal and child health in Ethiopia. His area of expertise is within the field of maternal and child health with a special focus on antenatal care. Tewodros also have extensive experience and expertise in writing publications and funding proposals. He has published an impressive numbers of articles already, and 3 are from his PhD that we will discuss today. He has done this as a principal and as a co-author. As lead investigator, Tewodros received international grants from the International Confederation of Midwives and from the Lærdal Foundation in Norway. Currently, Tewodros is leading a longitudinal quasi-experimental study focusing on the effectiveness and feasibility of an 8-contact antenatal care model in Ethiopia. He has worked with researchers from low and high income countries, such as with us in Sweden, from Ethiopia, from Kenya, Malawi, and from Somalia. Tewodros was also the coordinator for a capacity building leadership program supported by the Swedish Institute in 2020 to 2021. And he is still active as an alumni representative for the program conducted under the umbrella of Center of Excellence in Sustainable Health at Karolinska Institute and Makerere University. So I'm very proud to introduce Tewodros for today's defense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor, for introducing the candidate. Now it's time for a candidate to present his dissertation.
Okay, maybe I would say good morning for others and good afternoon for people from Ethiopia, and probably good evening for other people living in other time. I'm here to present the flavor of my 4-year PhD project entitled With Healthcare Providers Adherence to the first ANC visit guideline or women in Gondar Town Public Health Facility, focusing on maternal and child health. And this is my presentation outline, starting from the list of scientific publications and acknowledgement section. And I will come later on in detail. And we have been produced around 4 independent papers, but they are interrelated, and 3 of them are published in scientific journals, and the rest one is under review. So to start with the context of the problem, reducing maternal and neonatal mortality is one of the targets of Sustainable Development Goal. And aligned with this, in Ethiopia, the current maternal mortality ratio is around 412 per 100,000 live births, and the current neonatal mortality rate, which is registered in 2019, was 3 per 1,000 live births. In line with this, antenatal care is one of the health system intervention used to reduce maternal and neonatal mortality globally and as well as in Ethiopia. And accessing and quality of NC service is very crucial. And however, in Ethiopia, antenatal care coverage remained suboptimal. And as you can see here, from 2005 up to 2014, the coverage of the proportion of women who received at least one.
Would you please mute Get down, please. Can you ask get down? You are disturbing. Please mute. Please be muted. All the participants, I would like to request you kindly to mute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And as you can see from the trends of antenatal coverage from Ethiopia from 2005 up to 2019, the proportion of women who received at least one antenatal care was increased from 28% up to 74%. And to say something, the 4 visits focused antenatal care model, this model is introduced by WHO in 2022, and it involves specific evidence-based intervention for all pregnant women, and carried out at 4 critical times. And it's revised into 8 contact antenatal care model by 2016. However, the 4 visit focused antenatal care remained in standard nowadays. And the first visit is very unique in its intent other than the other visits. And the Ethiopian government has been adopted and implementing the focused antenatal model since 2022 to date. And however, is not supported with guidelines. Globally, improving quality of care by using the guideline is one of the healthcare challenge system, and providers' adherence to evidence-based first NC guideline has been reduced maternal and neonatal complications so far. However, there is still controversies on the timing content of the guideline related with perinatal outcomes. And it is heterogeneous with maternal, socioeconomic, and obstetric variables. So the level of providers' adherence also is unsatisfactory in African countries, particularly in East Africa, and the 95% of women had at least one ANC in East Africa, and the quality of antenatal care also suboptimal. And coming into Ethiopian context, around 74% of pregnant women had attended at least one NEC visit. However, 43% of them had at least 4 NEC visits. So it indicates that there's a doubt on quality of care provided on the first visit due to lack of or inability to adhere guidelines. Having a single visit with the quality of care is a double burden for the pregnant woman and the community at large. So what's missing about the problem? The number of visitors, the quality of care, and the relationship with perinatal outcome is the area of research and controversy so far. And on the Ethiopian context, translating the existing guideline into practice is a missing link, even if the evidence is there. And the reasons why healthcare providers are failing to follow the guideline is not well studied. The contribution of each intervention during NEC is not also well studied. So there is a bounty of evidence in Ethiopia on the extent to which fathers' adherence to NEC guideline during the first visit and its relationship with maternal and neonatal complications. So we are here to fill these gaps. On conceptual framework, we have been crafted the conceptual framework from by adapting the conceptual framework from the Denovidian and WHO framework, which is having the 3 attributes of quality of care, having the structural, process, and the outcome attribute, and thus attributes are interrelated, and organizational and system-related factors, as well as provider-related factors, will also affect the process of the care, which is adherence to the NEC guideline, and it could be attributed with maternal, socioeconomic, and obstetric variables. And finally, those the 2 attributes will affect the outcomes of maternal outcome like maternal neonatal complications. Rationale of the study. So NC is one of the powerful tool to reduce maternal and neonatal mortality so far on line with the CDG. And evidence boards with the latest studies in Ethiopia showed that the number of visitors and the quality of care is suboptimal due to lack of following NC guideline. As such, it was mandatory to produce evidence on the effectiveness of Fantakate guideline, focusing on the first NC visit. Exploring the provider's perceived benefits and barriers to follow NC guidelines is the first step to increase the use of clinical practice by healthcare providers. This is a research question which is crafted from our hypothesis and from the existing framework. As an objective, the general aim of this project was to investigate the quality of NC during the first visit in line with the national NC guideline. And we have four independent but interrelated specific objectives. And the first objective is to assess the proportion of clients who received complete provider's adherence to NC guideline during the first visit and client-associated factors. Then the second and the third objective is to examine the connection between complete provider's adherence to the first NC guideline with related to maternal and neonatal complications. And the last objective is to explore the provider perceived benefits and constraints associated with working NC guideline. So coming to third setting, the study was conducted in undertown public facilities having 1 hospital and 3 health centers. And to summarize the methodology section and line with the objectives, and we have the baseline objective, which we use a cross-sectional study design, and around 834 pregnant women with gestational age less than 28 weeks were included. And provider's adherence to NC guideline was used as an outcome variable, which is measured by an 18-point checklist. And to say something about the 18-point checklist, it is extracted from the Ethiopian NC guideline, having the history taking, physical examination, and laboratory investigation, and the care provision aspect. And it was assessed with direct observation. And the second and the fourth objective was a prospective course study from the first visit up to the first 6 hours of postpartum period. And population is similar with the baseline study. And the exposure was provider's adherence to NC guideline was the exposure, and clients received all 8-point checklist or complete adherence to first NC guideline was considered as unexposed group. And around 832 pregnant women was followed up to labor and delivery. And maternal and neonatal complications that occurs during antepartum, intrapartum, and postpartum period were used as an outcome variable, and log binomial logistic regression and negative binomial model was used in respective objectives. And finally, a descriptive qualitative study was applied to explore the provider perceived benefits and constraints with involving around 9 healthcare providers who were purposefully selected, and an interview was applied with interview guide, and it was audio recorded. And the transcription of this interviews was analyzed by content analysis inductively. And this is a training, and the training was given for both data collectors and supervisors for CDIS, and how to use existing tools, and how to conduct the direct observation, and how to follow the woman on the follow-up and up to the level delivery. And as you can see, the direct observation was done by data collectors when the care provider was giving the care for the pregnant woman. And once the woman gets the care, the pregnant woman will be segregated either exposed or unexposed group and followed prospectively up to labor and delivery, with having the antepartum and the other outcomes were recorded in every visit and up to labor and delivery. The protocol has been reviewed and approved by the Institute of Gondar National Review Board. And coming to the result and discussion section, coming to the first objective, the proportion of providers adherence to the first NC guideline, and only 1/3 of clients received complete providers adherence to the first NC guideline, which is similar to what other studies done in adherence reported in Ethiopia, like in Bahar Dar and Hosanna. And majority of clients received poor quality of care, and even if when they managed with healthcare providers. And the in agreement and the low adherence score could be inadequate training on anti guideline implementation and shortage of basic medical equipment and supplies. It is much lower than other studies done in African countries like Ghana and Tanzania. Could be difference in study design and measurement of the outcome variable. On client-related factors affecting Tewodros adherence to its guideline, and as you can see, the odds of clients who booked their first ANC visit after 6 months of gestation received complete Tewodros adherence to the higher extent. Denial of major intervention during the first visit is a crime, because it's recommended to provide this intervention during the first visit. This might be because the existing variation of among healthcare providers on the content and timing of anti-TK guideline, and which is supported by the current qualitative study. And denial and mistimed intervention is a paradox in symptoms. On the other hand, those of women with previous history of obstetric complication received complete Tewodros adherence in the higher extent again. And it could be healthcare providers give more emphasis for those women who have previous obstetric complication, like previous cesarean section. And the present study finding is similar with the described in study done in Chicago. And in both studies, healthcare providers maybe want to be very curious for those clients who are the previous complications. This is cohort flow diagram of our cohort study, and at the beginning, around 832 pregnant women was recruited in the study, and finally, around 782 pregnant women were included on the final analysis. And as you can see here, women received complete Tewodros adherence, reduced the risk of anemia by 46%, and it can be explained in many ways. Early initiation of nutritional intervention like iron and folic acid supplementation and direct counseling may trigger to reduce the risk of anemia, and good counseling during the first visit also would also increases the motivation of the pregnant woman to uptake iron and folic acid tablet supplementation in subsequent visits, which is consistent with other studies done in African countries like Ghana and Tanzania. On the other hand, received complete Tewodros adherence reduced the risk of, increased the risk of antepartum pregnancy-induced hypertension during antepartum period. Among women who received care by Tewodros adhered completely, it could be, focusing to screen clients who were at risk of developing the pregnancy complication would be more effective for detection and treatment of the complication, and maybe fear of, the recurrence of the complication in the current pregnancy. On the other hand, again, received complete Tewodros adherence reduced the risk of combined neonatal complications like stillbirth, asphyxia, and others by 44%. And the inverse relation with complete adherence with combined neonatal complication could be explained in many ways. The first explanation is the first visit might create an opportunity for a woman to connect with formal health services like screening of pregnant women who have at risk of developing complication, because maternal and neonatal complications usually are interrelated. On the other hand, the first visit also exact moment to deliver cost-effective interventions like folic acid supplementation and immunization like tetanus, which is consistent with other findings done in Ghana and Ethiopia. And at last, the content analysis of our qualitative study bring up the major challenges that affect providers' notice guidelines into 4 categories like organizational factors, existing care providers' knowledge, attitude and skills, and training and mentorship. And I'll come later on just in detail to discuss some issues. As you can see, the first organizational factor that affect providers not to follow guideline was the guideline itself was an overarching challenge, because it was not accessible in the health facilities when they need it, and the content is not comprehensive and detailed, and the format is not user-friendly, and even if it's updated by WHO into 8 contact, the Ethiopian government is not still updated the guideline, which has resulted in poor quality of care and broken trust between clients and providers. And one thing interestingly is that accessing the guideline just digitally on the internet helps them to refer just early when they need it. Scarcity of equipment and others facility, mainly on-site centers, also other organizational factors that affect us healthcare providers for the guideline. Women may occasionally turn into private facility to get the service, and it may cause frustration for both the women and the midwives at large. And high client to provider ratio, also one of the system or organizational related problems that affect providers to follow the guideline, because if the cases are very high with per day, they may focus in single services and rush to other related packages of antenatal care, which may contribute for low adherence. On the other hand, existing care providers' knowledge and attitude will also affect us with poor providers' attitude and behavior to use the guideline in general. And usually it's poor motivation from the provider side. It may usually providers with poor motivation is always less likely to follow the guidelines. They are motivated with different reasons. Senior obstetricians and medical internists usually have no culture to use guidelines. They prefer to use standard books other than the guidelines, and which is supported by other studies done in Mozambique and Ghana, as well as in Bangladesh. And on the other hand, variations in providers' knowledge, skill on the timing and content of antenatal care also affect us, the providers. And one care provider had said that I don't perform an abdominal examination when the client comes before Tewodros gestation. Why I'm going to palpate the abdomen for the fetus already in the pelvis? Because palpation of the fetus is not the only objective for doing abdominal examination, which is against with the recommendation. Training and mentorship on usually commenting on pre and service program. Commonly in the in-service program, midwives and medical interns at the final year are expected to provide the service according to the guideline, but due to poor clinical supervision by the tutors and high number of student to high client ratio, they fail to follow the guideline. And on in-service program, lack of continuous professional development and supporting supervision also contributes for low, poor adherence to any guideline. So we do have implications from our perspective to false perspective. The low adherence to the providers to any guideline indicates that the government haven't given much attention to the quality of care. And you see, the most utilized healthcare paradigm program is running without unclear guidelines. From clinical perspective, compromising the quality of care by providers to non-adherence to the guideline will contribute to poor outcome for maternal and neonatal outcomes. And we have developed a policy brief and soon communicated with the policymakers in the future. As a medical consideration, we believe that our findings are strong with internal validity and generalizable to the other facilities. And the prospective nature of our studies is our strengths, and we exerted our efforts to make our finding more valid internally and generalizable. And since we have a qualitative study, we believe that our qualitative findings are trustworthy because of different reasons. We have been involved with different multiple investigators having different experience in the field, and we used well-prepared interview guide. We give an opportunity for clients to be refused during the interviews, and frequent debriefing sessions, and as well as audit trial also contribute to increase the credibility, dependability, and neutrality of our findings in qualitative study. So as a limitation, we believe that we may be affected some limitations with the findings, like Hawthorne effect, since our study is observational study or with direct observation, but we made our factors to decrease the Hawthorne effect bias. Due to the effect of an observer lasts only for a short period of time. Usually it's known that people may pretend for 10 minutes and back to the normal usually. And discarding the first few observations and the longitudinal nature of the study also contribute for the reduction of the Hawthorne effect. And we believe that some bias may exist. And ascertainment of some outcome variable for women who give birth outcome as the home will be affected. So as a conclusion, the proportion of clients who received complete providers adherence to the first ANS guideline was low, and with women with previous complications on late booking received complete providers adherence to a higher extent. Although providers acknowledged the benefits of following ANS guidelines, they were not fully translating the guideline to practice due to different reasons. And complete providers adherence to the first ANS guideline influences both maternal and neonatal outcomes during intrapartum and postpartum period. And we are recommending for stakeholders based on our findings, and for the ministry as a policymaker, they should shift the paradigm of ANS service delivery from coverage to quality, and they should update and implement the newly added contacts and antenatal care model For program people, the NC guidelines should be modified with practical, simple, and these flow charts. And training or NC guideline implementation should be given as continuous professional development for midwives and other healthcare providers. For public health facilities, the NC guideline should be posted on the bulletin board of all NC rooms. And for midwives, we believe that midwives should have an active role in development, implementation, and update of updating NC. For future research, the future study has to be done on effectiveness of the contact NC model with its feasibility on the Ethiopian context before it's into the on the system. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and very grateful for the stakeholders who are involved and helped in the last 4 years. And I would like to praise my guide and my supervisors, Professor Kilike, Christian, Professor Elena, and Dr. Mokoyale Mayo. And thank you very much for your immense contribution. And thank you, we're a great team. And I would like to extend my gratitude for University of Gondar, School of Midwifery, and Karolinska Institute, Institute of Public Health. These are very valuable partners which make our program more fruitful. And funders like International Confederation of Midwives, Johnson & Johnson, study participants and families, particularly my wife, and funders, my mentors in general. Thank you very much. This is my presentation. Over to you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you so much, Tewodros, for a very informative presentation. So he made a wonderful presentation within the allotted time. Now it's time for scientific debate, argument with scientific reasoning and justification with examiners. I would like to invite external examiner, Professor Ellingson. Back to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. I would first like to thank the University of Gondar for the invitation to review this thesis. And I have some pictures that I would like to share with you. See if we can find it here.
Yes,
I can't find. I have it on my.
Yeah, the share is at the bottom.
Yeah, I know,
You
but
can find.
yeah, but I don't find the presentation. I have it on my. I have it here on my screen, but I can't see it right now. Maybe because I have to.
Alternatively, we can use the plan B. Could you share us via email, my email, for the email shared yesterday has found, and then we can share here.
Sorry, what did you say?
If the document is not able to shared I think we can support you here if you send us via email.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use the email test found which communicated you yesterday.
Yes.
Professor, will it be
Yeah.
okay? Yeah, till you fix it, we can have Dr. Ababa. Yeah, so in meantime, you'll join us. Yeah.
Yeah, I have sent it now. So,
All right.
yeah, well, I
Thank
start to talk a bit. Yeah, okay.
All right, okay.
I realized from your talk that we only had 30 minutes each, the reviewers. So I think I have prepared a bit too many questions, but I will go through them just quickly.
Professor, excuse me, it's not 30 minutes each. You can have a maximum of 1 hour to discuss with Tewodros.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I must tell you what my role is as an opponent. It is to review the thesis and make an appraisal of it. And my role is also to ask questions and encourage discussion. For people outside the academy, it might sound critical sometimes, but this is a scientific discussion and we should bring up different aspects of the thesis. And I must say, an overall assessment of the thesis, I think it's well written. I think it's important. And I believe it contributes to the research community. I would like to ask you, Tewodros, what brought you to become a PhD student?
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. I'm here. Would you please elaborate the question, please? We are here to address the technique with organizers.
Yeah, I just interested why you become a PhD student.
Yeah, as you know that I'm a midwife by profession, and you know my background is midwifery, starting from the bachelor and the MSc program. And in fact, I'm one of the first midwife who had master's program in midwifery in Ethiopia. And after having some experience in the field, I was very, interested to, to pursue my education in line with the midwifery program. And I was much interested on midwifery education, research, and practice.
Did you work yourself within antenatal care as a midwife?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. See, after I graduated my bachelor's degree from University of Gondar, I immediately joined at as a junior tutor at University of Gondar as well. But I had an experience, some experience to work with clients on antenatal care, like as supervising students during clinical practice. However, my master's was entirely clinical, and I have been working like on antenatal care clinic, on labor and delivery, and other components of midwifery practice. So I know what's going on the clinical practice and on the program side as well.
Thank you. Now I also have the the screen. So I wonder if I can could please make me host or move a bit further in the presentation? I can't do anything here.
Yeah, I can help you. Yeah, we can navigate the slide. Yeah, just tell me which slide you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go on some few slides. It seems to be locked in one picture. Yes, you can take one more. Yes, please go on. Yes, here we were. Yes, here we can stop. Well, I would like to ask you, Tewodros, what has been the most challenging in your PhD studies?
Thank you, Professor, for having this question. And I have been started my PhD just by thinking the end in mind. And I was passionate to pursue my PhD on midwifery as well. So it was not easy, to start to being a first PhD student in Ethiopia without having the existing expertise in the field. But unfortunately, I was very lucky to have, to get professors like my supervisors and other people mentor at University of Gondar. So where everything was smooth. But there are some challenges that I faced on my PhD, like now the nature of my PhD was it's like a longitudinal study, having data collection, more than a year. So it cost us a lot for me in terms of, money. But I was very lucky to have some funding from International Confederation of Midwives through Johnson & Johnson. So, the funding was one of the challenges for me.
Yeah, okay. Please move on. And what has been the most rewarding for you yourself during your PhD studies?
Thank you. Again, there are a lot of things that can I say, I'm very lucky to be, the first midwife having doctoral degree in midwifery in Ethiopia. And I got some immense experience from my supervisors, both on the PhD program related with midwifery and research experience. Like very, I feel that I'm very competent in both qualitative and qualitative research in line with midwifery program.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Please move on. I also a bit interested in your own contribution. And when you write scientific papers, that is included in a PhD thesis. There are usually several authors, and the supervisors, they usually have a huge influence. And next, please. So what have you done all by yourself in the project? Please tell us.
Okay, thank you again, Professor. I believe that, having a PhD project is not a simple task. It is a teamwork. And I got a lot of support from my supervisors. However, and I'm the one who brings the idea, starting from the initiation of the project on the recruitment of PhD program during 4 years back. So picking the idea was my Then after, due to the support of my supervisors, I was developing, a proposal as planning, and then defending alone, having an ethical clearance from University of Gondar. And again, I've been independently supervising the project just for a year because it's a long-term study, and following data collection process and that data entry as well with the data clerk. and analyzing, I've been, the analyst was a little bit involved with other supervisors like Professor Klike, Helena, and Dr. Mokreo. So, and then finally, the final stage was writing independent scientific papers like manuscripts. And again, I was the one to write the first scientific paper article and revised it by my supervisors and getting approval before it getting published. And the whole process was just continued just like this. So now I feel that I'm very independent in conducting and planning scientific research on the area of midwifery and child maternal health. Back to you, Professor.
No, thank you. I think that you have done a really good work and a lot of work, hard work for you, I guess, during these years, and I'm very impressed about that. And then we shall just take some questions from each of the papers. So let's take the next slide, please. In the first paper, there you write about client factors affecting providers' adherence to the antenatal care guidelines. And in the background, you describe the focused antenatal care model that has been running for 2 decades and includes 4 visits. Can you tell us anything more about the background to that model? Why was that introduced, and how was antenatal care delivered prior to that? Were there any antenatal care in Ethiopia?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Again, to say something about the focused antenatal care model in Ethiopia, it has been adopted and implementing by making contextual by Ethiopian government just 15 years back in 2015, and then it was incorporated into the healthcare system. But one thing was, there was no very clear guideline to say focused antenatal care model, because it was embedded in other documents like obstetric protocols prepared by Ministry of Health and incorporated in training guidelines like BMOC. Then after the introduction of this model, the coverage of antenatal care is just increasing from just 28% up to 74% with the proportion of women who get at least 1 antenatal care visit. However, the proportion of women who received at least 4 visits was very, very minimal. It was around 43%. It indicates that the quality of care provided for the pregnant woman during the first visit is just insufficient. And I do have in doubt whether a proper quality of care is conducted for pregnant women apart from accessing the service for pregnant women. Back to you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Yeah, you write in the meta section of the first paper that you approached 8 public health centers in Gondar. They were selected health facilities. How were these facilities selected?
Yeah, you are right. We have been conducted this study and selected public health facilities in Gondar town. And in Gondar town, there are around 8 public facilities, health centers, and 1 hospital, teaching hospital, University of Gondar. And from the outset, I was, this health centers was, health facilities was selected randomly. And we select 4 health facilities, 3 health center and 1 hospital by simple random method. And then a proportional allocation based on the case was determined. And with some interval, we have been selected pregnant women who get the service of antenatal care with something interval 2. And the first client in each facility was selected by lottery method. So in general, it is a 2-stage sampling technique.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, please. And in the method, you have the exposure variables, complete adherence, and you base that on the 18 items in the checklist. Do you yourself believe that all 18 items are of similar importance for the outcome?
This guideline focusing the first visit comprises, history taking, physical examination, and having some laboratory investigation as well, and provision of the care. And we believe that the entire purpose of this, services, including assessment and provision of the care, is, contributing, reducing maternal and neonatal mortality by identifying the complication of the minorities and enhancing the health of pregnant women, so as to improve the outcome of the neonates as well. So they are similar, but they are not the same.
Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Do you think about you show us very nice pictures of the direct observation. Do you think that the method could affect the provider's willingness to adhere to the guidelines? Or did they just get used to the observers?
Thank you, Professor. We used, direct observation to measure the provider's adherence on the guideline. And prior to our study, we got an informed written consent from both clients and providers. So they were very happy. But we believe that we may be very affected without own effects. They may pretend as if they are doing, best, but later on they will come back to the normal. And in fact, we have been discarded very few observations during the beginning of the project. Okay. So this is the way. Thank you, Professor.
Did the women, did they meet the same care provider at all visits, or were there different healthcare providers at the antenatal visits?
Would you please?
I'm asking, was there any continuity of caregiver over the course of pregnancy? Did the women meet the same midwife or doctor when they came for the visit?
Our projects might show, the effect, apart from the major outcomes like improving maternal and neonatal outcomes, it may have an impact on the continuity of care, like initial delivery. But unfortunately, almost 96% of the clients, completed the antenatal care and have initial delivery has facility.
Okay, thank you. You also write about counseling, and counseling can mean different things. And I'm curious about what you mean by professional counseling. Can you give me an example how the counseling was performed?
Counseling is a very comprehensive professional practice, which is conducted by the professional and the clients as well. And there is a mutual communication between the care provider and the client about the care and their concern related with the pregnancy. And we believe that it needs a proper communication and even eye contact and some privacy with clients. So it is, and there has to be a say for the clients about their related health issues on pregnancy.
Thank you. Next, please. I'm just one short question about the data process and analysis. Why did you choose to enter variables with a p-value less than 0.25? What was the reason for that choice?
First we did by variate analysis with having the outcome variable and the covariates just one by one, and those variates with p-value, covariates with less than p-value less than 25 was included in the final multivariate analysis. I think it is a rule of thumb whether we include more than, let's make it 3 less than 3, 0.3. It may not be, statistically significant whether it is entered to the model or not. It may not have any significance on the final model. So we believe that we include the other covariates with probability less than 0.25 with the major exposure variable.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. As I read the article, it seems like there were both midwives, medical interns, and obstetricians that provided antenatal care. Were there any difference between those professional groups in terms of adherence?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. As you know, antenatal care is a responsibility of midwives, obstetricians, general practitioners, and even nurses in the rural setting. So, you know, we have been measured just the adherence with all providers, whether they are a midwife or an intern, a medical intern, or a midwife intern or a nurse. But we have been assessed with our qualitative study. There is no, you know, their perception to use the guideline is somewhat quite different among midwives and obstetricians. Obstetricians, you know, usually, you know, commonly in teaching health facilities like the hospital, they prefer to use, you know, standard books like a code than the current guideline. So this is the usual practice here in Ethiopia.
Thank you. Next, please. And you report that there were 32% adherence, but on the other hand, the mean score was 16.78 for all items out of 18. That was the maximum. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Okay, thank you, Professor. As you can see, the overall, you know, adherence, I mean, the proportion of women who received complete adherence was around 32%, which is, we can see it's low. However, the mean adherence score was 16.78 among 18 variables. I think the mean score is, even if the overall adherence was low, the mean score is very, very high. You know, it was very, very tight, none or all none approach when we score to say the woman received complete virus adherence. So a woman received 17 variables, we're considered as an incomplete. That's why we make it as 32%. We believe that every woman deserves to get all services which is, you know, listed on the according to the guideline.
Thank you. Please go on. You told us that the providers did not report medical history to the same extent. Do you know the reason for that?
Shall I respond, Professor?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, regarding on the medical history, you know, this is one of the lowest score among 18 variables, and it may be probably, it might be to the fact that providers might be quite busy by providing care for all pregnant women, because in some health facilities, mainly in the hospital and in some health centers, the number of clients in the health facility is very high. So providers may prefer to adhere in selected and the most important services, like, you know, doing physical examination and measuring the PP, the blood pressure for pregnant women. So they may exempt some essential services like medical history. That would be the probable justification. And on the other hand, you know, midwives and other health providers may be more competent on obstetric-related concepts like, you know, previous obstetric history, the current obstetric history, and like usually, you know, assessing the medical history is the most neglected one. Like the pregnant woman maybe have, you know, pre-existing hypertension and diabetic mellitus, so they may prefer to, you know, to focus on other components of antenatal care during the first visit.
Yeah, thank you. Just a short question about table 4. I guess that's where you entered the confounding variables. Were there many variables that you entered to adjust the model? Or were there just some few?
There were some variables were adjusted, like socioeconomic and obstetric variables like education, maternal education, booking at the first visit, previous history of obstetric complication, education, even it was having occupation and other related socioeconomic and obstetric variables.
Okay, thank you. I can see that there are not that big difference between the crude and the adjusted odds ratio. So it seems like the confounders were not interfering with your results. That's good. Did you get any reactions from the medical or the midwifery society when this article was published?
Thank you. Just a month back, I was trying to present my segment of qualitative study to large audience, including the Ministry of Health. We in front of the Directorate of Maternal and Child Health, Dr. Mesrat, and she feels the gap on implementing of the current antenatal care, the focus on antenatal care. And still now, I didn't get any reaction from the midwifery society or society from obstetrics and gynecology. I think in the future, I'll try to disseminate with stakeholders like the policy and professional societies immediately after this program.
Thank you. And your conclusions are that the level of adherence was quite low, and you encourage refresher training regularly, and there is a need to identify and learn more from the healthcare providers. And I agree with your conclusion on the first paper. And we can move on to the next slide, please. And this paper is about completed adherence to antenatal guidelines and antepartum complication. You told us that it has been submitted for publication. Have you heard anything more from the journal?
I used variance inflation factor, and I believe that there will be a correlation with the covariates. They will compute each other with the outcome variable. So I was trying to compute variance inflation factor, and I used to have less than 10 as a cut point as standard.
Yes, and then you discussed the incidence of anemia and the higher risk of pregnancy-induced hypertension. I think that's good. And then we take the next, please. Yeah, I found in the paper, in the manuscript, on page 13 and figure 1, we could see that the premature rupture of membranes was lower in those who had received complete adherence, but you don't discuss this at all in the paper, as I can see. Could you please explain the possible reason for this finding?
Thank you, Professor. Those are some of the main outcome variables associated with the exposure variable. And as you said, pregnancy-induced hypertension and anemia were discussed with the major document. And in the revised version, I was trying to have a discussion with PROM, premature rupture of membrane. Mm-hmm. And the possible reason will be healthcare providers may take much attention on women who had the previous history of PROM as previous obstetric history, and they may have identified the existing risk factors when the woman was screened up during the first visit, which may contribute for the reduction of premature rupture of the membrane.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. And you had very good conclusions and recommendation that complete adherence could reduce maternal complication, and there is a need to develop a program to increase the level of adherence, and it should be an essential component of antenatal care. And you should also encourage to have an early antenatal care in the first visit. Yes, I agree with this recommendation. I have no further questions on that paper, so we can move on to paper 3. There we look at the completed adherence and maternal and neonatal complications, both interpartum and postpartum. Here in the method section, you write about the negative binomial regression model. What is the benefits of using that?
Okay, thank you, Professor, for objective 3 to see the connection between complete twice adherence with neonatal complications and maternal complication during intrapartum period. Just in order to select the appropriate, method of analysis, first and foremost, we have to check our research question, and again, we have looked at the nature of the data, and when we looked at the nature of the data, it looks like, the outcome variable looks like, is the count data having a number of complications, neonatal complications like stillbirth, preterm delivery, low birth weight, and asphyxia. So the risk of having, neonatal days for a neonate having 1 complication and 3 complications is quite different. So we need to accommodate, you need to select any model that accommodates this assumption. And from the outset, the assumption was having a Poisson regression with count data. And however, the mean and the variance was not equal, and the variance was greater than the mean. So there is over dispersion. So it indicates that there is heterogeneity with having a random error assumption. So negative binary model was an appropriate model.
Yeah, thank you. Next, please. And you found in the result section, you found no difference in sociodemographic background between the exposed and non-exposed that we can see from table 1. And then in table 2, the only difference between exposed and non-exposed is time booking. No questions about that, but we can move on to the next picture and look at table 3, because you write on page 5 in the article, it says that the different incidence of maternal complications among women who received complete and incomplete providers adherence was statistically significant. And you present the numbers 32.7% and 40.7% respectively, and you get a p-value of 0.03. But I have some problems here because I can only read those who have had any interpartum or postpartum. There is no information about how many the rest were. And if I calculate, as you can see on this little screen, if we have 83, the rest would be 171 in the exposed group. And in the unexposed group, we have 215 that had any complication, and the rest must be 313. Well, I can't tell this from table 2 because you only show those who actually have. And if I calculate the difference between the groups, I can't get the statistical significance. Can you tell me what I might have missed here?
Maybe, thank you, Professor, and I should get, I'm using the proper procedure for computing this model, and probably I should go back and check the number of cells in each the exposure and the non-exposed group, and I will come back later on.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, that it's not written out in table 3, so you don't know what to calculate on actually. Well, you can fix that. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, and we come to the conclusion and recommendation. And you find that complete provider adherence to antenatal care guidelines during the first contact reduce the risk of neonatal complication, and that's very important. And there were no statistically significant reduction in maternal adverse outcome. We also recommend that we should develop intervention that build on antenatal care guidelines and should be followed by healthcare providers. And it's important to have this early detection and management of complication if we want to improve maternal and neonatal complication. And I agree with those conclusions and recommendations. I think it's very important that you have looked at the especially for the neonatal complications. Thank you. So then we have the last paper about provider perceived benefits and constraints of complete adherence. And in the method you write, you have a proposed sample of 9 individual interviews. I think it's a quite small sample, even for a qualitative paper. What do you think about that?
Thank you, Professor. Regarding about the number of participants included in our qualitative study, as you said, we have been included around 9 healthcare providers as a part of in-depth interview, and it looks like quite small, but according to my understanding, the number of the sample size of in qualitative study is not to be determined prior to the data collection, and it depends on the level of saturation. And after having 9 consecutive individual interviews, there is no a new idea which was emerged on the interview, and we believe that, and we're much satisfied on the idea delivered on during our interview with healthcare providers. So it was depending on the saturation point, not the number of healthcare providers.
Thank you very much. Yes, please next. Well, did you consider? Oh, okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Noise, yes. Did you consider any other methods? Did you consider any other methods of data collection?
Yeah, so we used an in-depth interview with healthcare providers, but after having the data collection, I think it was nice to consider triangulated with other data collection methods like FGD with clients on the review on quality of antenatal care as per the guideline.
And you used an interview guide to make sure that the same points were covered. Why was this important?
Yeah, we developed the interview guide just to make sure that we are following appropriate, leading questions, probing questions, and we have to make sure that the same question, maybe other question maybe emerged one after the other, just to make sure that all the points were covered as per our guide.
Yeah, next please. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. We got answer on that one. Next, yeah. Did you ever discuss the benefits of, for instance, having focus groups with the healthcare providers?
It would be nice to have a focus group discussion, but we get very thick data from independent of healthcare providers. Having focus group discussion will have other advantage over in-depth interview, and one advantage will be having a common and shared activities and experience regarding providing quality, antenatal care based on the guideline, and what are the shared challenges among healthcare providers and other programs as well.
Yes, true. And what about the method of analysis? You used content analysis by Erland Künges. Did you use it inductive or deductive?
We used the inductive one.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So next, please. Yeah, and the healthcare, in the result, you write that the healthcare providers listed lots of benefits of using the guideline, and they also listed a lot of challenges that affect the completed adherence. What do you think the hospital manager will do to support and implement changes based on the findings of qualitative paper?
Yeah, and as you can see from the finding, there are lots of problems, challenges that affect healthcare providers to follow the guideline, to implement the guideline just properly, and those problems are interrelated and mostly organizational problems. So those star managers may play a great role in controlling the quality of care, whether it is given as per the guideline or not, and what are really the challenges. They may audit, they may check whether the basic supplies and equipment are available or not, and they may check that whether the guideline itself is really accessible to the end-level users like healthcare providers or not. So they do have really a huge role on having part of the solution in availing and minimizing the existing challenges in the health facilities. Over to you, Professor. Hello. That's right. So I'm saying anything else. No, maybe connection.
Can you hear us, Professor? I think Professor is dropped because of maybe connection. So let's wait for her to get back to the room.
Can we proceed, Dr. Kasaun? I can proceed until she come back.
Okay, Doctor, maybe let's wait a couple of minutes, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I will let you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are keeping to contact Professor. So till she get back to us, so we can start discussion with Dr. Ababao. Professor Helena, would you please help us in reaching Professor? Thank you.
Yes, I'm doing that. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Ababao, you are welcome. You can start.
Okay, I think let me share my slides and I post it. Okay. Can you see the slide?
Yeah, yes, Dr. Ababao.
Okay, I think first of all, I also acknowledge the University of Gondar for inviting me, and also I appreciate the presentation. I enjoyed this test to read, and I tried to capture the major findings and try to review the methods. Generally, the study has both clinical and public case importance, and it has also a strong side. If you see the methods applied, especially use of mixed method and the follow-up data. I have also appreciate the way you prepare the document. It is a well-written document. But as usual, we have comments. My major comments are focused on the measurement of exposure and outcome variables. Some of the things are already addressed by the external examiner. In such case, I will not repeat that. I have started from the background and I tried to identify some of the issues for our discussion. First thing is the focused antenatal care model that you mentioned. It segregates pregnant women into two groups. That is those who need the routine care, and then the other one is those who need specialized care. From our previous understanding from our reading, we consider all pregnancies have risk. So do you mean that those who need the routine, I mean, meaning this just we can link with the so-called risk approach, the problems of the risk approach, and that was already criticized. How do you comment on that?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ababao, for bringing the question to the floor. And as you said, the focused antenatal model segregates pregnant women based on the screening criteria. Checklist is already in practice in Ethiopian NIS guideline, with having around 18 points based on the current and the previous obstetric and medical problems. So this woman who received at least has no any previous problem, like maybe previous cesarean section, and others will consider will get the routine care, right? The routine care. And if the woman have at least a risk, obviously previous, when you say risk, when a woman have some risk factors on the current pregnancy, like cesarean, previous cesarean delivery, like previous history of preeclampsia and eclampsia, like previous history of bad obstetric outcomes like stillbirth. So they would get, additional, in addition to the current the routine care, they will get a specialized care. that specialized care could be increasing the number of visitors, having additional investigation, such like. So it doesn't mean that it is a risk classification. And in other law of thumb, based on the global figure, almost 75% of pregnant women will not have, will not end up without any complication, but 25% of them will come up with, complications due to the pregnancy itself. So we are, in addition to the majority, we are really taking care of this pregnant woman in general. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Abo. Over to you.
Thank you. My second point is you have this statement, effective and timely implementation of antenatal care alone has been projected to minimize maternal and neonatal mortality by 10–20%. Quality and timely. So it is better to define this in the new document. How you understand from this word, the timely and the quality, and also the outcome indicator, in this case, maternal and neonatal mortality. It is very difficult to consider maternal and neonatal together. Do you have a separate, if you look at the details of this study, do you have any, meaning the contribution for the reduction of neonatal mortality is much, maternal mortality is much. Maybe that is better to understand. So these are the comments. Can you comment on this?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Avo, again. As we know, measuring quality is very difficult to measure, right? So we can measure just in terms of the infrastructure we have and the quality of healthcare provider just we have, and the care, the care provision during clinical practice based on the available local guideline, evidence-based practice with experience of the care, and those interrelated issues will bring some outcome. Like when you say outcome, it could be the outcome of individual services, maybe the number of pregnant women who received complete the 4 visits antenatal care, or it could be institutional delivery, and it could be reduction in maternal later complications, or it could be reduction in neonatal complications. And coming to at large, the indicator could be, reducing maternal and neonatal mortality just in general with an appropriate indicator.
Okay, third point. Okay, thank you. The third point is the utilization of antenatal services has an effect to reduce neonatal mortality in sub-Saharan Africa by 39%, in Ethiopia by 65%. How you evaluate this study? What kind of study is this one?
Yeah, this is a systematic review and meta-analysis study just done in Sub-Saharan Africa and in Ethiopia alone. They are independent papers, and the last one is reviewed by and published by the Ethiopian author Kasye et al. From Harima University, and decided that utilizing antenatal care really reduces neonatal mortality by 65%. So it was a systematic review and meta-analysis.
Okay, just see it again, because this is a very significant difference when compared with Ethiopia and other sub-Saharan countries. The other thing is there is the global scientific community has no agreement about the optimal content, the frequency and style of delivery. If there is no agreement, how we get that guideline? That is, we have already this antenatal guideline. So what do you mean by this statement?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abavaw. This is very critical point. And obviously, guidelines are usually, delivered from, large organization from Geneva, which is WHO. And countries around the world, including Ethiopia, may bring this guideline by contextualizing on the country context. But however, some countries may bring, some component of the guideline into their local guideline, and the other guideline may even push the timing of antenatal care, like booking the first visit. For example, in the other countries, they are allowed to, pregnant women are expected to attend their first visit before 12 weeks. And again, on the Ethiopian context, it is 16 weeks. So there is a huge variation. And in fact, it would have an effect on the contribution of antenatal care in reducing maternal mortality. And some other countries may use different approaches, like they may use a home visit for antenatal care, and some other countries may follow, other innovative approaches like group antenatal care. So those issues may bring a variation in reducing maternal mortality and morbidity. Over to you, Dr. Avo.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I recommend to have one subtopic addressing details of antenatal guideline in your background or literature. I think this is the focus of your study, so please consider that. And in your objective, the general objective, I think is not in line with the title somehow. And I have another question on the second and third objective. For me, there is no difference. Both are about the effect on maternal and neonatal complication. Can you explain about these two questions?
Thank you again, Dr. Avavao. I think we believe that such objectives are derived from the general objective. And when we say it is quality, is very broad. It is adherence to ANC guideline, and the outcome variable is already there, which is maternal and neonatal outcomes, and some other structural components. Structural component of the guideline, like challenges and passive benefits, will be a part of general quality. So it's obvious that the general objective is a little bit general, then coming to the specific, it's more clear. And on the second question, you are right, for both the second and third objectives, the exposure is the same, but for the outcome variable, it is an antepartum complication, which is maternal. And for the third objective, the exposure is similar with the second objective, but the outcome variable is the maternal complication. Again, that occurs maternal and neonatal complication, maternal complication during intrapartum period and neonatal complication. We brought those objectives purposefully because we believe that the neonatal outcomes usually more proximal with the maternal complications. And for the sake of publication and dissemination, we separate those objectives in a separate way. Thank you, Dr. Avo. Okay.
Professor, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I don't know what happened. I was just thrown out. It was impossible to get back. But I think that I have asked the most important questions that I wanted to have the answers to them. So I can stop here. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Rao. You can proceed. Go ahead, please.
Sorry for the interruption. Can you see the?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I was asking about whether the title and the general objective are in line or not. So please respond for that. And also objective 3 and objective 2 are more or less the same. Your response, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Avao, and I believe that the title and the general objectives are in line. When I say quality, it has the 3 attributes, having the structural, the process, and the outcome attributes. And the priority adherence with the first objective is related with proportion is the outcome, I mean, the process attributes, which is again, it is the quality. Again, for the sake of second and third objectives, they are similar, but they are quite different because they will have the same exposure, which is priority adherence to the first ANC guideline as an exposure, but their outcome variable is quite different. For the second objective, the outcome variable is an antepartum complication that occurs before the commencement of labor. And the third objective is to see the connection between the exposure with maternal complications that occurs during intrapartum and postpartum period, as well as neonatal complications. We brought this things just purposefully because we believe that neonatal complications is a little bit more proximal.
Okay, I think let us proceed for the next slide. We may need time to finish.
Yes,
Can we proceed to the next slide? Maybe about the manuscripts. Have you published three of the? I think you have published three of the manuscripts.
Yes,
No.
three of them have been published.
Okay.
One is under review.
So what do you mean by multi-center study? Can we say multi-center study by considering these facilities?
Thank you, Dr. Abavao. You may write, but we believe that our study sites were multi-center because we have been involved with different, level of health facilities like hospital and different health centers. So if it is more than two, maybe if I'm not mistaken, it is considered as a multi-center. Over to you. Okay.
Regarding the measurement of adherence, I have some questions. The first one is you are considering 18 items for measurement, and when you say receiving complete provider adherence, who should be the target population for adherence? The clients, the provider, or both?
Thank you, Dr. Avog, for your question again. Provision of, providers are, providers, and clients are, recipients of the service. So it depends, they're interrelated, and without having the provider, there is no client as well. So the effect of the provider's adherence is in line on the target of the client. So as you said, the population may be both, but the provider's aspect is addressed by the qualitative study, mainly on the challenges and their perceived benefits.
I mean, your observation is about the interaction, or because you are going to follow the clients based on their exposure, whether they are received or not, so you define them and then you continue for follow-up. So the effects will be on the clients. I think this will be tricky. When you calculate the sample size, could it be the interaction of the client or application of this procedure by the provider on the client, or so what do you observe should be the practice of the provider? It is, that is my question. Yeah. Regarding the other point here is the effect of direct observation. I think this is already raised. I don't want to repeat. Who did the observation?
Yeah, the observation was conducted by data collectors who are not working in the same health facility. They are professional midwives, and they are not a part of. They are not the same facility because I recruited them just with having a monthly salary because they don't have a regular job. So they are professionals. They do have. Proper knowledge and competency on the target outcome variable.
I think the time, the place, these all are very important for observation. Have you considered, do you have any criteria for observation? How? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Again. The observation was type of a direct observation when the healthcare providers was giving the service in front of the client, and obviously both the client and the provider knows the presence of the data collector of the observer inside the client room, the antenatal care clinic room. So this is the way that we did on the actual data collection.
Yeah, I think in the guideline, we need to have the quiet room, and then it should be without affecting the confidentiality, privacy, and so on. So that kind of criteria should be defined anyway.
It's well accepted, Dr. Avo.
The other thing is you have given equal points for each. Why? Are they the same? The 18 checklist points, most of them are about history, and some others are service, and the others are just physical examination or laboratory examination. Do you think they have equal value? I think this was also raised.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Avavau. As far as the services in the guideline is included, it is supposed to provide for all clients, whether it is history taking, because history taking and physical examination has its own role on preventing common maternal and neonatal complications. And having lab investigation has also its own role. So it may not be equal, but it has its own contribution. So it has to be done as a must-do activity as far as it is incorporating the guideline, and it's as far as an evidence-based practice. That's why we used our all or none approach when you measure our outcome variable for the exposure.
Some of the services like FIFO, nutrition-related interventions, they have initiated as the first antenatal care visit, but we have to be sure that they are continued in the next months. Or some of the checkups, we need to repeat the checkups. Otherwise, we can't consider that criteria is considered. How you rate or measure such kind of service contents in the package?
Yeah, regarding on counseling, as you said, doctor, it was again measured during the first visit, and again another 8-point checklist having the proper counseling, including provision of nutritional services on subsequent each visit, and it was very promising because more than 76% of pregnant women received very continuous counseling services like nutrition, like birth preparedness and complication readiness plan, and other components of counseling in each and every visit before the commencement of labor.
So when we say the FIFO is received or taken, or the prescribed folic acid, iron folic acid is taken by the mother. So when she completed the recommended or the prescribed dose, or when we use it, this content is fully received.
Yeah, for the first visit, obviously, my exposure variable was relied on the first visit. So during the first visit, counseling service like FIFO is counseled in addition to the provision. So it was checked at the first visit, and later on in each subsequent visit, again it was checked whether the woman gets the service or not. So to say the woman received FIFO of iron and folic acid supplementation in subsequent visit, she has to get in every visit, as it was considered as a confounding variable, and it was well controlled on our follow-up study.
I think, yeah, it is good to have also the results of adherence based on the checklist. I think the other point is the measurement of exposure. How you define exposed versus non-exposed? Can the non-exposed include those who never receive antenatal care?
Thank you, Dr. Avavau. The level of exposure was determined once the woman gets a service due antenatal care. After we finished a direct observation while the care provider is giving the service for the pregnant woman, we were, the pregnant woman may be categorized either to exposed to non-exposed group. So for those women who didn't get a service, was not included from the outside.
Okay. So I feel, just this is my feeling, the missing, if the effect of missing only one service content, maybe 2 content, 3 content, maybe all be different on the outcome of interest. Some of the services have direct relation with some of the outcomes or the complications. Can you consider further analysis? You have, in fact, considered the mean score, but can it be helpful for further analysis?
Yeah, for the time being, we did it for the complete point adherence for the women. But in the future, maybe we might recommend for independent of for a single exposure, like provision of how adherence to folic acid supplementation contributes for the reduction of neonatal mortality, prevention of anemia, and such alike. So I think we can take it as a gap and recommend for future research.
Regarding follow-up of the course and outcome measurement, follow-up of pregnant or gestational age of 28 weeks or less is considered as a point for your follow-up or define your cohorts. Why 28 weeks?
Yeah, for the defining the first exposure on the first visit, we make our extension up to 8 weeks. The recommendation is up to 12, up to the WHO recommendation, or up to 60 weeks according to the Ethiopian government. However, when we see the current practice of the coverage of first ANC booking, almost 70% of the Ethiopian women book their first ANC more than after 16 weeks of gestation, usually more after 20 weeks. So within the specified period of time, I can't accommodate a maximum number of sample size within the specified data collection period. So that's why I pushed it up to 28 weeks gestation. And on top of that, most of the complications are usually after viability, usually after 20 weeks gestation, like usually pregnancy-induced hypertension, APH, and most of maternal complications occur after 20 years gestation. So I considered it up to 28 weeks.
Do you think there will be a problem in the follow-up if there is variation in the follow-up period for some of the plants? For example, some may start early, like 16 weeks or 20 weeks.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? Can it have any impact on the outcome?
Yeah, in fact, it was measured and it was controlled as a confounding variable on early ANC booking, like late and early. When you say late, it was after 16 weeks gestation, and it doesn't have much effect on the prevention of maternal and neonatal complications as per our finding. But women who booked their first visit received complete bodice adherence in the higher extent.
Cesarean section in your meta part, I have seen you included under the list of postpartum or intrapartum complication. Why? Can adherence play any role with the procedure? Meaning, it is a service to avoid complication or death. Why you consider that?
Yeah, you are right. Even if it was not significant effect on the risk of having cesarean section, identifying women having the previous cesarean section or having the most likely having cesarean delivery will be identified as early as possible, like identifying the risk factors. For example, if a woman has previous cesarean section, or if a woman has existing chronic disease like chronic hypertension, and which is medically not allowed to have spontaneous vaginal delivery. So it can be predicted as early as possible, and it may decrease or increase on the service of having cesarean delivery. But has no any effect as per our finding.
I think it is better to exclude from the type of complications. That's my comment. And good to have a composite indicator for intrapartum as well as postpartum, like the prenatal complications. Again, in your result part, I have seen this about 6% of them were lost follow-up. You based on your definition. And you mentioned very critical point here. The reasons for lost follow-up were self-referral to other health facilities and permanent change in workplace. You stated like that. What will be the effect of most of the lost follow-up? I mean, self-referral are because of complications.
Thank you, Doctor, for bringing this question again. As I said, even if the dropout rate is very minimal, the reason for dropouts were self-referral and changing working place. Usually it's common to have a multiple cards, like one woman may get the service from the hospital, and again for the second or third visit she may go to in the private clinic again, and she may go to in the health centers. So there are a lot of factors that may push her to discontinue her service in a health facility. But when it is a practical thing, they usually, defer getting the service at the health facility at the beginning where they get the service, like the first antenatal care. So they will referring themselves to the private or other health facilities. It's not due to the complications they occur. They may believe that having having care as a private clinic may be good as compared with the public facilities. That was the reason. Even if it was not assessed, we didn't assess that would be the probable reason.
This is also maybe useful to mention as a limitation that may affect outcome. One of the things that affects outcome. I think not bad to mention in that part, the limitation part. Now, the relationship, adherence to antenatal care guideline with maternal and neonatal complication. I think that is one of the major part of your research. So outcomes depends on service at different time points. But you didn't account such service like second visits, having third visit, having fourth visit, full antenatal care, meaning recommended care, delivery care, even cesarean section, postnatal care. Presence or absence of such kind of service may have impact on the outcome.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Again, apart from the primary exposure, there are a lot of component variables that would affect the outcome variables, like the service given in each visit. And it was controlled as, counseling, a very composite variable, counseling during in each visit, like it was measured as a composite variable. And women received at least less than 4 visits and more than 4 visits was really significant relationship with the maternal and neonatal outcomes, mainly the neonatal outcomes. So it was considered on analysis and it was properly controlled on our respective models.
Have you considered, for example, cesarean section delivery by stillbirth attendants? I didn't see that.
No, we didn't consider that, and I think we can take it as a limitation.
I feel that contributes a lot for reduction of major adverse effects. I think log binomial model was done for the examination of relationship between complete provider adherence with antenatal complications. Why you consider this model?
Thank you, Dr. Ababa. For the second objective, we used the log binomial model to assess the relationship between complete virus adherence with antepartum complications, because our objective is to see the effect size, which is the relative risk. We're having bivariate outcome variable, having one or more than one or no complication on antepartum complications, and having no anemia or having anemia. So to check the effect size for having a relative risk, the usual models like odds ratio doesn't compute for relative risk, so we prefer to use a log binomial model on our final analysis.
And again, in the factors associated with these outcome variables, you mentioned that having complete provider adherence is contribute for reduction in the risk of anemia, but it is higher for pregnancy-induced hypertension. Are you comfortable by this finding?
And it was really a surprise for us, which is against our original hypothesis. We believe that provision of both preventive and screening cares during the first visit might decrease the chance of having pregnancy-induced hypertension like eclampsia and eclampsia during antepartum period, but along with against with our original hypothesis, it increases the risk of pregnancy-induced hypertension. Probably we believe that it is credible, but it may need further research in the future whether we are using a proper screening tool to identify whether the woman have pregnancy-induced hypertension or not. But maybe due to the fact that providers may pay attention to for a woman who is having a possible risk factor for having pregnancy-induced hypertension, like previous history of pregnancy-induced hypertension, and if she's maybe obese, even if we didn't measure it, and other previous or chronic hypertension like preosmotic history, chronic hypertension, such like. So the providers may pay attention during the first visit and follow strictly in each visit, and provide a very comprehensive counseling service. And the woman may get back to the health facility when they saw the severe signs. Such things may increase the incidence of pregnancy-induced hypertension due to it could be over attention. And the existing preventive measures like provision of calcium is not well practiced in Ethiopia, so it needs a further research in the future.
I think if you look at the next point, maternal complications, intrapartum, postpartum period has also no effect, and there is also, we have seen higher impact for occurrence of pregnancy-induced hypertension in all cases. The analysis seems based on each type of complication. You try to show us for that. If you look at the table 6, we have seen the analysis based on each type of the complication. I think if you divide your sample, so then with rare outcome, the sample will be very small. So you end up with unstable statistical result. This may be the major reason if you support this. Can you agree with this or?
Yeah, it could be because we have been calculated the sample size based on the combined complications. So we didn't calculate for the outcome of each variable. So it may contribute for the low sample size may contribute for unstable statistical results. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So please take this as a major limitation of this relationship, because this is a strong finding, so it's very difficult to justify. Some of the indicators, very important indicators, are also not controlled. meaning predictor variables. Is it logical to see association between current antepartum complication and maternal neonatal complication? I have seen you consider current antepartum complication with maternal neonatal complication.
You are right, Dr. Avvao. And as per our statistical finding and hypothesis, complications that occurs during antepartum period, for example, anemia, will contribute for the occurrence of, combined complications, maternal complications like, PPH. For example, anemia will have a direct relationship with postpartum hemorrhage. So there's an interconnection. On the other hand, antepartum complications like, again, anemia and pregnancy-induced hypertension and other complications will have direct relationship with neonatal complications. If the woman has anemia at the beginning, obviously there will be a chance of having stillbirth, even low birth weight, as a part of neonatal complications.
I think the occurrence of, this is just part of the outcome variable for me. If you consider the occurrence of one type of complication during your observation or your time of follow-up, that will be considered as a positive finding, and then if there is no, we'll consider negative. So I think it is better to treat like that rather than to link two interrelated outcome variables. Regarding the qualitative data, I think the issue of FGD is already raised. I feel FGD is important for this, for the guideline. It's better to discuss the health professionals together. They can comment on it, but you missed that. You mentioned there are two major approaches of qualitative data analysis. You said content and thematic analysis in your method. What do you mean? Is that only two types of analysis?
There are, thank you, Dr. Avvao. For the sake of analyzing qualitative data, there are different types of analyzing qualitative, like the framework analysis, the content analysis, thematic analysis, and even the ground theory analysis. But specific to our research, there was a possibility to use content and thematic analysis, and they do have in terms of physiological, philosophical background, they are very similar, and content analysis is very common in midwifery and nursing research, and they are common in terms of description and interpretation of the storyline. However, on thematic analysis, there is much interpretation of defining the thematic categories. So there is more influence on interpreting the data by the investigators, but it's not much in content analysis. Usually it's a little bit more descriptive.
All right, okay. Regarding the findings in your table 10, the challenges that affect the complete analysis, meaning the barriers you mentioned, I think it is good to add one column referring the recommendations for each of the identified barriers that make it more clear for the reader. In your discussion, the design being multi-center study carried out in different health facilities, I think this is not strings. Totally, you can ignore the strings because people can understand by reading the methodology, and then it's good to focus on the limitation. And the discussion of contradictory finding, the positive association between exposure and the risk of antepartum pregnancy hypertension. So this means adherence increase pregnancy in this hypertension. So you try to suggest some, put some explanations. I think they have no scientific ground. So my recommendation is better to revisit methodology or the measurement, as I mentioned, the sample and other issues, and then put it the study limitation. If you agree, can you agree or?
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, all the explanations cannot be, accepted in the discussion part. Conclusions and recommendations, complete providers' adherence to first antenatal care guideline, influence antepartum and neonatal outcomes. You mentioned this. What about your conclusion? Its effect on maternal outcomes.
I think it's already mentioned, as I've said, on the main document and my PowerPoint. Complete providers' adherence influences maternal and neonatal complications during intrapartum and postpartum period. That was my conclusion, if I am mistaken.
No, I mean because you considered even other maternal outcomes, the postpartum and the intrapartum period. If negative, you have to mention the negative result. There is no relationship you found. Is that not?
Yeah. In fact,
so that is a conclusion. That is very important finding. So better to mention.
Thank you.
So you consider only those with relationships. That's not enough. So mention there is no final relationship with postpartum and intrapartum complications. And the list of the recommended, you can see the details. I think the recommendations should be based on the study findings related to, must be related with the adherence and its impact. I think you bring other things that is not related to your finding. For example, for policymakers, both of the two recommendations are not based on your study. Have you seen that? You can read it. So I think, just this is my comment. You can discuss with your advisors, and if that is the case, it is better to remove. For MSH programs, you mentioned for example, the antenatal care guideline should be modified with practical, simple, and it's easy to follow flowcharts that users could refer for quickly. I think if you want to comment on this guideline, we have to get the specific problems of the guideline and the way how we modify them. So that is very important if you want to mention this. Can you comment on this?
Thank you, Dr. Avavau. Just to say something about the recommendation for program people, based on the finding of our quality study, healthcare providers believe that the existing flowchart, antenatal care card, is not detailed and user-friendly, and it's not detailed content on each visit. Commonly, it's somehow detailed on first visit, but on subsequent visits, you don't know what even, so you said counseling, what should be counseled for a pregnant woman. It has to be specific and detailed, and even, it has to be user-friendly. The providers has to understand these concepts just as easily as possible. That is my thinking, and it was clearly identified by the healthcare provider during interview. And as I mentioned so far, the guideline itself was a major and an overarching challenge to implement in the proper way in the health system.
Okay, you are also recommending Pharmatica and the Food Supply Agency. I think it's better to recommend further study again on this challenges related to the supply chain system, because there's something just mentioned by the healthcare providers during your interview, but that may not be sufficient for me. You need to get detailed information to recommend. The other thing is for public health facilities, like periodic certification, recognition, incentives, again, require stronger evidence. Very difficult to rely. A suggestion forwarded by one person from the qualitative interview, very difficult. If you have, for example, focus group discussions, that may be stronger, but we may not have, it's very difficult to recommend such strong statement based on such finding. That is my comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, both Professor and Dr. Avo, for having a nice discussion with me, and thank you very much. And I will come to later on.
Okay, Kasaun speaking. Thank you so much, Dr. Ababao, for very valid scientific argument with Tewodros. Now, I would like to invite the audience for further any points, any discussion you wanted to comment or ask or argue with Tewodros. Use this opportunity. Okay. Yeah, I think the audience has no any further comment, but I would like to move the the video towards to the audience. This much audience are attending your scientific argument. So thank you so much for attending. The families are his baby boy and the daughter are with us. So I would like to request you to leave to the room for the deliberation purpose, and then we'll invite you later on. Thank you.
Dr. Kasaun?
Yes.
Just I want to have just 2 points.
Yeah.
This is Ricardo from the Ethiopian Midwife Association.
Yeah, I do understand, because we will have time for this. Now a private room will be created for examiner board only, and then you will join us. There is next to the deliberation announcement and sharing. So please understand us. So you will join us later.
ሌተር ላይ እንሰጣለን።
ዶክተር ካሳሁን
ዶክተር
የፕራይቬት አልሆነም እኮ የለም እንትኑ
አሁን ገና ክሬት እያደረግን ነው። ትንሽ 2 ደቂቃ።
ኦኬ
ያረግነው ይመስለኛል። Okay. Okay. So I think thank you so much. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me now?
ካስሽ ፕራይቬት የሆነ አይመስለኝም። እኛም እየሰማን ነው።
ኦኬ ያ በሁለት ኮምፒውተር ስላለ ነው ያለም። ታንክ ዩ ተስፍሽ ቆይ Okay, thank you so much, the audience. Now back to the room, and virtual attendance also back to the main room. All right, so I would like to invite Professor Ellingson to announce the PhD evaluation to audience. Back to you, Professor Ellingson.
Accept alarago. Record unko indona. Indona. Yanyo pon would mean. Join back one of us. Indona. Record. Close all rooms. Close all rooms. One breakout room, close in 50 seconds. Let's wait for it. Small pass. Internet on the second. Second.
Second, you know, second which you put there no count down here. And that's what tolerant. Yeah, okay, and then
Yes, Professor Ringerson, Professor Ringer. እሱኛውን አበቃ ሚኒማይዝ ላድርግልህ ቆይ በዚህኛው በእኔ ላድርግ ባንተ ታረጋው ዴሊብሬሽን እሺ በቃ ንቀለው
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, we are using two computers as a plan B, so sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you so much for all the process of evaluating Tewodros' PhD defense, public defense. Now it's time to announcement of the evaluation. I would like to invite Professor Ellingson to announce the evaluation. Back to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Well, Tewodros, where are you? I can't see you. Can we have Tewodros in the picture, please? Where is the main person?
መክሪያ ወደ አንተ አምጣ አንተ እናንተ ፒክቸር ይታያል ወደ ነው መክሪያ
All right, sorry. Now we can hear you. Go ahead, please, Professor Hellings.
Yes, but where is Tewodros? Can I see him? There he comes. Please stand before me. Thank you very much. Yes. Well, the examiners have discussed the thesis and we have graded this as excellent. And we want to congratulate Dr. Tewodros and the University of Gondar for this fantastic dissertation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh. Congratulations. Dr. Tewodros. You are very Dr. Tewodros.
So are we allowed to speak out now?
Yes, it is your time. It's your turn, Professor. Go ahead, please.
It's okay for us, the supervisors, to say something?
Yes.
Yeah. So, dear Dr. Tewodros, congratulations from Sweden. Unfortunately, our head of department, she was not able to listen to your presentation and your defense, but she has written down something. Professor Kristina Gemsell, who is our leader in this topic at the Karolinska Institute, I will read what she has written to you. I would like to convey my warmest personal congratulations on your achievements. I'm impressed by your work and happy that I also had the chance to meet with you in person in Gondar in 2020, a visit that made strong impression. And on behalf of the Department of Women and Children's Health at Karolinska Institute, I'm also proud of the fact that you are the first midwife to defend your thesis within midwifery and women's health program at the University of Gondar. This is a significant sign of the success of the collaboration between our institutions. I would also like to congratulate your supervisors on their successful mentorship and development of the collaboration. And I wish you all the best for the future and look forward for our continuous collaboration. And of course, Tewodros, Dr. Tewodros, as one of your supervisors, I am very happy for you, but also for the University of Gondar to make this achievement for the development of the midwifery profession. And you have shown that how important it is with midwifery research, that we should look critical into our tasks in the clinic. And you have shown by your thesis that we are not always as good as we should. We are not always doing the right things. And you are looking into what kind of outcome it can be for the mother and infant. And you also looked in with different methods. You also looked into the perception of the healthcare providers, which is quite often forget. We look into what we are doing, but we are not asking the question, why did it happen that we are not performed in the way we should? But you have, through your studies, got one step further to look into this. So this has very much to do with the development of the midwifery profession worldwide and in Ethiopia and in Gondar. And I see this as a long time collaboration between Sweden and Ethiopia. It started more than 50 years ago when Swedish midwifery tutors came, but they worked alone and not in collaboration with Ethiopians. They worked at missionary hospitals and so on. And I would say it was first in the 90s, we really started to collaborating when from Sweden we had the first workshop called From Research to Action, where we invited Ethiopia to take part in our Africa Midwives Research Network. And since then, we have collaborated, not just coming as experts, but we have collaborated. And of course, I became very happy when I was invited to Gondar. And I don't know who was behind the invitation, if it was you, Tewodros, or who it was, when I came as a lecturer in your master program. And now we have this program, which started 4 years back, the PhD program, where we have been working jointly, very close in collaboration. And I really congratulate you as being the first Ethiopian midwife who did all the work in Ethiopia. And you are the first with a national degree. So congratulations, Tewodros.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you a lot for me. I mean, a lot for me.
Thank you, Professor Elena, for your greatest contribution for the professional development, capacity development. So we are really benefited from your support. So we'll keep working and expanding the collaboration. I think Dr. Tewodros will take the lead from Ethiopian side. So we are very grateful, for all the contribution you have made so far for the capacity development on maternal child health, in particular to midwife in Ethiopia. So now I would like to invite Dr. Makriao. Institute of Public Health at University of Gondar also has its own contribution, hosting this PhD student to our institute, to support them on the domain of public health. So representing by Dr. Makriao, I would like Dr. Makriao to reflect his supervisory team.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kasson, for inviting me. So as you see, Dr. Tewodros has got many qualities. He is well articulated, and he has got really a fast learner ability. So one thing really strikes me about Tewodros, we used to discuss in my office, and then when the lunchtime approaches, we go out for lunch in. Usually, we'll go to Goa Hotel. So we do have a common trade, so that we step out from academic discussion, and then we'll have some socio-economic and political discussions. We had a hot discussion, but in the middle of our discussions, he really come up, oh, that variable, we have discussed these kind of things. You see, he is very much curious, and he is a fast learner. So congratulations to Dr. Tewodros. On behalf of 5H, I think this is a group-based learning. Every single individual of 5H member has got his contribution for the achievements. So on behalf of 5H, I think I would like to thank 5H staff members. As you clearly mentioned by Professor Kasson, sorry, it is a 360 learning so that we learn from all formats. So on top of that, I would like to also forward my acknowledgement for Professor Helena, Professor Kiliki. It was educational. We learned from you many things. So finally, I would close up my speaking by congratulations, Dr. Tewodros. You will have a very bright future. So the midwifery profession will really nice on you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Makreo. Professor Kiliki, go ahead, please. Yeah, Professor Helen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And I would just like to agree with what has been said before. It's an extreme happiness today to be able to, now I just see the ceiling, but it's okay. I'm so happy for you, Tewodros. Dr. Tewodros, I will tell you in every time we talk in the future, I will start our dialogue with Dr. Tewodros because we are so proud of you. And thinking back now to the first time we met at the University of Gondar and our discussions we have had along the way, it feels like we have really been on a journey together. And of course, it would have been lovely to be there together with you today. This is second best, and I hope we will be able to congratulate you in person soon in the future. So we know that you have so many important things to do in front of you, and we are very, very convinced that you will contribute to improved maternal and child health in Ethiopia and also worldwide. So warmest congratulations, Tewodros. Well deserved.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Elena, for your greatest contribution, to support us, to support Tewodros, to support the School of Midwifery, to support Ethiopia at large. Thank you so much. So we will keep working with you in a broader dimension. So thank you so much for this. I think we will have many more graduates. Solomon and Marta is on board. So we'll have many more, times to share, our happiness, your contribution together. Thank you so much. Now I would like to call Fekadu Mazenga from Midwifery Association of Ethiopia to share on behalf of, representing the association. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Kasson, for giving me the chance. Greetings from the Ethiopian Midwife Association. So on behalf of the 20,335 Ethiopian midwives, the nearly 50 million Ethiopian mothers, and the Ethiopian Midwives Executive Board, myself, and the Secretariat, we are just following you in the same hall, sitting like you. So this is a special day for Ethiopian midwives. We have got our bright star today, our shining star. So we are very much happy. We are very much pleased. And we want to thank all the collaborators, the hardworking team. From our side, we want to thank Tewodros for his hard work. Dr. Tewodros, you have worked hard for the last 4 years, and you have been a fruit of this excellent partnership between two important and very big universities, the Kalinsko Institute, which is a Nobel Prize awarding institute and known in Europe, and also Gondar University, the peaceful university, and a historic university, and an award of 3 quality awards in the last successive years in Ethiopia. So the two partners university have produced the first ever midwifery doctor in Ethiopia. So we are very much happy. This is not the first time that Sweden has supported Ethiopian midwifery. Long time ago, the first 8 midwifery schools in Ethiopia was established by Sweden under Rada Barner that time. So Gondar was one of the first Ethiopian midwifery school that was supported and opened by the Sweden government and the people of Sweden. So we thank you for that. That strong partnership have been still, Sweden is our embryonic partner, long-standing partner, and strong partner. And then we open our, when we open our MSc program, so Professor Kailiki came and taught our students the first program. So I was a member of that school. And then I have a special affiliation to Gondar, affiliation to the school. So personally, I'm very much happy. And today, when we reached that this career, it is a special day for Ethiopian midwives. Now we have got our policy director, policy advisor, and then the researcher and educator in midwifery education, in women's health, and in general in reproductive health in Ethiopia. This is because of the support of the generous financial and technical support of Sweden government and Kalinowska Institute, and also the strong support of the Institute of Public Health. I want to also thank the leaders from the previous university leaders to the current university presidents, vice presidents, the deans. They were supportive to this program, and we have been we managed to achieve this program because of their support. We are very much thankful to Institute of Public Health, our sister institute. We know they are overstretched, but they were willing, and they go extra mile to support the School of Midwifery, and they supported us to reach this level. So today, just thinking this is a special day to mark our achievement, to mark our partnership, to mark our strong effort. And this will be, now the fruit of this will be like by shaping the future of the midwifery profession. Now the institute, the Kalinowska Institute, Professor Helena, Professor Kailiki, Professor Ingrad, and all other members from Sweden and the Institute of Public Health. Now you will see the fruit starting from tomorrow. And then this will be extended to the mothers and the children of Ethiopia. And on behalf of the Ethiopian Midwife Association, I think we are thankful to you. Congratulations to our hardworking staff members. Congratulations to the advisors, Professor Kalinki, Professor Helena, and Dr. Mokriau. Congratulations to School of Midwifery and the School of Public Health, and congratulations to all. Thank you very much. On behalf of Ethiopian Midwives, all 20,000 people has greeted you and thanked you.
Thank you so much, for very informative message representing Ethiopian Midwife Association. That's very encouraging message. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Dr. Tewodros and followed his way.
በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል። እንኳን ደስ አላችሁ።
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, the success behind because beautiful kids. So it's very congratulations.
Really, I'm very emotional today, and I will not talk more about to be here today. So I'm very emotional. To be here is not uneasy for me because PhD by itself, the process by itself is very difficult. It was a mix of different up and downs, and I know that having a PhD degree was not easy at the beginning, and unfortunately, I was lucky to have very specialty people who live in my life the last 4 years. It was really, you know, so important to have very important people like, you know, very professors who had an immense experience in midwifery globally. Thank you all my 3 supervisors, Dr. Mapriao, Professor Kalike, Professor Elena. Really, he was so humble, and I enjoyed a lot, and I get a lot of experience and learning from your side in the last 4 years. And I'm very lucky to have you. And on top of that, I would like to thank, you know, and I would like to thank examiners, Professor Ingert. You are so special, and I'm very happy to have you today. And I hope we will meet in the future just in person in Sweden as well as in Ethiopia. And I'm very glad to be here today and to be examined by you and thank you, Dr. Abavao. And I know you are very special and humble. And I know you so much before when you were in Gondar. And I'm very happy to be examined and approved to be Doctor of Midwifery in Ethiopia. And I wish I will meet you sooner or later. And I'm very happy to work with you. On top of that, I would like to acknowledge my supervisors, home supervisors into public health, Professor Kasahun, Dr. Hasfahun, Dr. Talake, and others. And you are so amusing. You geared me, you motivated me, you excited me a lot, and I'm very happy to be here today. The presence of to be here today is because of you. There are some, you know, up and downs, and there are some sweet moments just with you. So thank you very much to be with you. On top of that, I would like to acknowledge my friends, my buds, and you know, my colleagues. You are so special to be here today, and thank you very much. And finally, I would like to, you know, acknowledge, you know, my beautiful wife, Onjit. You are so special, and you support me a lot. You are very courageous, and you know, you're really very supportive for me in the last 4 years. And thank you for being my life partner. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. This is you know, the beauty of, you know, PhD defense. Now we shared your emotion. So thank you so much. The discussion, you know, the argument were very successful. I think he will be very resourceful person. We'll work with professors in Sweden. Thank you so much. I think it's time to conclude successfully today's PhD public defense. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Dr. Avo.
You're welcome. Congratulations, Vijala. Congratulations. Haris, no.
Thank you, Dr. Avo. ወሬዎችን እያሰማ